Well, guys, we've got the moon in Aries the next couple of days, and it winds up 2023 with a bang. Luckily, not too big of a bang, but we are in the process still of massive systemic change. It was started quite a while ago, actually, but ever since 2020, we are seeing the results of that Pluto in Capricorn demolition crew. It really started back in 2008 and even before that. Things work cyclically, but we live so day to day in our present moment. We don't tend to notice things until it gets really obvious. And we've been living in the obvious stage for the last 2 years, almost 3 years now. And so 2023 is a big transition year, and there's a lot of transitional energy. It's a very fast moving energy, but not right away. So you're not going to feel a whole lot of difference on January 1st. And my friend CDN he did a video about saying, there's so many New Years that 2023 predictions can't just fit 1 year. And he's kind of right, because our year start date is completely arbitrary. But when people like me make an annual prediction, I'm basing it off astrology for the months and the time periods, because dates, the date name, like when people are like, Thursday is Thursday. Yeah, relatively. Okay. But it's an arbitrary mention. The universe doesn't actually care about the name of the month. It doesn't care about the name of the day. Now, granted, there's egregores around those things. There's beliefs, and those are powered. But when it comes to the astrology itself, we're looking at the position. Okay. And I do Western tropical astrology, so that's a geocentric point of view. And because, in my opinion, we live on this planet, and that shapes our reality, our perceptions shape our reality, right? And so when I give a 2023 year ahead prediction, it's based off the position of the celestial bodies from the date ranges I'm giving. It doesn't matter you could call the months Zibelblop and Zorblat, and it would result in the same thing. Okay. Hi guys, welcome if you're joining. So my whole point tonight is I really want to give you guys a heads up of how to prepare for 2023. You can go listen to my podcast, the Awake Space Astrology podcast. It's on all podcast players. Okay. And I did a whole episode. I think it's episode 52, but it might be like episode 50. Scroll through. It's on Spotify. Go through all the episodes. There's a bunch of stuff there. Okay. I'll have a special end of year episode out tomorrow. I will record one tomorrow. I might even get my astrologers on tonight if they're going to stay up late. Hint, hint, moderators. Hint, hint. I won't be on too long on this. Hi, guys. So, and thank you for tapping the screen. I really appreciate it. If you've got questions about where you can find the podcast, or she's awake, Casey's awake. Yeah, I know you've had a rough day. We'll end it on a positive note. So how to prepare for 2023. The good news is we're not going to feel a big energy shift at all from January, like the start. Okay, so December 31st and January 1 are going to feel pretty much the same. Some years there's a big energy shift, just like, and we do that through our collective belief. But we're all kind of tired right now. You feeling tired? I mean, the energy is a little subdued, right? And some of that is people are kind of feeling what's coming up. Oh, hang on a second. So might be deleted later. I love your username. I love all of your guys' usernames. All of my December predictions have been so accurate. I'm your new go-to. Oh my God, thank you. And by the way, you guys have got, like, today's the 29th. So you guys have 2 more days, or actually 1.5 more days, 2 more days to join the Patreon and retain the 2022 pricing. Because January 1, there's 2 new tiers starting. And I raised the price from 3 to 5 and 5 to 15, because I haven't raised my prices in 2 years. They've stayed the same. You've been tired. Yeah. Oh, I get it. And I don't know if I had a cold or something like if you guys have noticed, I haven't really gone live and I didn't do a lot of content. I was so out of it last week. I had a major headache and I just slept. Like, I'm a night owl. I went to bed before 8 p.m. one night. Like, seriously, I was just out of it. Now, some of that I think we're calibrating to the energy that's coming from a metaphysical point of view, but I think on a mundane level, I don't know if I had a little cold or what, and I'm not testing positive for anything. So, and I didn't really have a fever. I was just wiped. And so I slept. But yeah, thank you guys. I worked really hard to be a good mundane astrologer. So when I was learning astrology, my teacher made me learn like everything all at once, and it was brain breaking. And this is like back in 1995. So I've been at this for a very, very long time. So, hey, you took a 2.5 hour nap today. Yeah, one day last week, I actually took a nap. I haven't ever been a napper. You can ask my mom, even as a baby. I just really wasn't a napper. But I took a like 40-minute nap last week. So the energy is subdued. This is giving us a chance to rest and calibrate and kind of you want to kind of spiral your energy inwards. I was a little annoyed with all the Andrew Tate bullshit going on. Frankly, yay, he got karma. Okay, cool. Hopefully he's charged with all kinds of things that he's guilty of, if he's guilty, and they try him or whatever. I think he's a little asshole, and I really don't know what it is with little insults his age. But these guys in their late 30s, early 40s, there's some of them are just super entitled. I had to deal with one yesterday. If you got my Crunch Report as a patron, I told the story about it. I mean, I literally had a man get out of his car and try to aggress me. It was the wrong move, and the most brilliant thing came out of my mouth. I didn't plan on saying it, but I just looked at him and went, "No, sweetie, not today, not with me." And he literally dropped his jaw. He was so shocked. I think he's used to bullying women, and he was in that age group. So whatever, frankly, welcome. Patriarchy is being dismantled. If you have mommy issues, deal with them, okay? Just like if you have daddy issues, deal with them. They're not everybody else's problem. Okay, we all have issues. We all have trauma. It's our job to work on that. Okay, don't project it out into the world. That's called like emotional vomiting. Let's not do that. Okay, we can deal with those things. So yeah, any thoughts on Santos? He's a prick. He's being investigated. I have no thought. I don't want to put my energy on these. That's why I was saying I was irritated by all this stuff. Put your energy on you and what you want. Okay, because focusing on all the douchebaggery, guess what? Let karma roll. Let people undo themselves. Put your focus on you. De-patriarchyfy yourself. If you have, believe it or not, I deal with client after client after client who will argue for their limitations all day long. They will argue, and that's everybody. They'll be like, but I've always been, I don't care if you've always been this way. You have a killer transit coming up, and you can't take advantage of it if you're in the same line of thinking that has kept you stuck. If you have a transit that can unstuck you, then unstuck yourself, okay? And you can do that with this, and you can train this. We have neuroplasticity. I saw a video the other day, it might have been yesterday, of this woman giving a TEDx talk, basically dooming you to reaching your potential self in your 20s. And where she was correct about some of the neuroscience behind it. Yes, our brain is developing in our 20s and we have pivotal moments. But if you think you're stuck in your 30s and 40s, you are doomed. And I hated her message because I rewired my brain. I could have stayed stuck. It's not because I'm special. It's because I'm human. Each one of us has the ability to rewire our brain, but you've got to be willing to do it. It isn't something you sit there praying about. It isn't something you write a lot of affirmations. You can write them in little markers all over your mirror, and you can look at yourself and say, I'm beautiful. I love myself. And if you don't believe it, your brain is just going to say that's bullshit. So you start with small things, okay? You are so welcome, because you know what? I'm not trying to shame anybody. I want to just shake you guys and get you to see how precious you are. And if you want the world to go in the direction you want it to do, you have to deconstruct the oppression you've internalized. Okay? Whatever kind of oppression it was, whether it was family patterns, we've all got them. You can blame mom and dad till the day is long, but those patterns go back hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. Okay? And so why would you look at the cause when you can look at the cure? And the cure is here. Okay? It's here. And it's not wishful thinking. It is small incremental practice and changing your habit of thought. So like, I'm not telling you to put a happy face on a bad situation. I'm not telling you to even think positive, but I am saying when something shows up, like an unexpected bill or something you forgot about, or you lose your car keys. And trust me, I've had plenty of those moments in my life. And like, I still broke my garage door opener and I have to go get it replaced, right? That's one of my Mercury retrograde tasks. Shit happens and you can say, this is horrible. This is awful. Bad things always happen to me, and make life worse for yourself. Or you can say, I wonder what good is on the way that I'm making room for. Now, this could be even relationships that change. Sometimes friendships go away. Sometimes lovers go away. Sometimes things don't work out, okay? So, but people focus on the negative. They focus on the loss. They focus on, instead of focusing on the potential transformation, you can feel sad and accept that you're growing all at the same time. All at the same time. You can be mad at someone and love them at the same time, right? And I am a philosopher. You're right. Thank you. I am a philosopher. So if you want to know, I'll be doing an end of year special podcast episode tomorrow. And if you want to know about Mercury retrograde through the signs, you can tune into that because I'll be talking about that as well. So it'll be a little longer podcast episode than that's for the audio podcast. But I have spent my life thinking about human consciousness, human development, because I was literally doomed by world-renowned experts when I was a 15-year-old. They basically said, you'll always be broken, you might as well deal with it, you've suffered too much damage, you'll never be happy, and you'll be lucky if you don't off yourself by the time you're 30. Can you imagine a professional person doing that to a young person? I thought they were nuts then because I looked at them, I'm like, because back then the narrative was we only use 10% of our brain. And I knew I was a genius because I had my IQ measured when I was 12. Okay, so I knew what my IQ was. By the way, it's higher than Elon's. But anyway, and it was at 12. But anyway, that's why I keep saying he's not all that bright. He gets his comeuppance next year in 2024. Don't worry about it. So does Zuckerberg. But anyway... But anyway, I looked at them and I said, but if we only use 10% of our brain, if we're not using our full capacity, wouldn't that mean that we have parts of us that we can activate or ways to heal? And they were like, no, that's just wishful thinking. You just need to deal with it. I called them when I was 38 years old. I got to 0 clinical markers in my 40s. Now, it took a long walk because neuroscience hadn't caught up, right? So I had to do all this other study. And astrology was a huge part of it, but I learned all kinds of healing modalities, everything from energy work to somatic practices. I worked with various therapists. And my goal was to be happy. That was it. At some points it was, I wanted to be rich. Everybody goes through that. But at the end of the day, by the time I was in my late 30s, it was like, I would like to know what it is to be happy. And I got there. And it's possible. And that's why I share with you. I want you to know you have that possibility. But it takes work. It didn't happen while I was sitting there doing affirmations because my subconscious went, you're full of shit. It's hard to trick your own subconscious. So it takes little incremental changes and you start small. And one of the ways is finding appreciation for little things about yourself. One of the things I hated most about myself physically was my thighs. Okay, I couldn't stand them. In fact, my daughter will bring it up. She'll be like, remember when you used to say you had man legs? I was like, yes. And so I didn't start with my thighs. I started with my nose because I thought my nose was, gratitude and appreciation are very different. Gratitude is often giving power to an outside source, whereas appreciation is an evaluation. So if you're appreciating yourself, you're raising the valuation of your worth. Whereas gratitude, like when people say, give thanks to God, why? 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 And do we know there is one? See, I'm a spiritual atheist. I didn't start out there. I started out believing in deities or a deity. Then I went to believing in deities. And then I went to agnosticism. And then I just decided to stop hedging my bets. I believe in energy. We are a reflection of that divine. And therefore, we are automatically agents of our own path, right? Now, you're entitled to believe what you will, okay? I don't need you to believe what I believe. I want you to believe what you believe, okay? But appreciation puts you in partnership with that energy, whether you call it a god, a goddess, whatever, universe, energy source, call it what you will. That's up to you, right? Okay. So when you connect to that, all right, and you connect to it in appreciation, you suddenly start, and this could be thanking yourself. I like to do this. I do little thank you me's, and this is one of the ways I started. One, I started working on appreciating my nose. I have a very good sense of smell. I didn't like the shape of my nose, but I could be like, okay, my nose is really good at smelling things, and I really have a great olfactory system. Just point out the things you like about yourself, okay? And just work on that. And so, because I couldn't just look at my nose and go, I love my nose. I couldn't do that and be honest. Now I can. I can go, hey, look at my schnoz. It's cool. Same with my thighs. I have really strong thighs. That's cool. Like when that guy aggressed me yesterday, I knew I can defend myself. So I wasn't afraid. That's why the cool, dirty, hairy quote came out of my mouth. It wasn't a dirty, hairy quote, but it might as well have been. My Venus and Gemini is so over the moon at what I told that little twerd. If you're a patron, go listen to the Crunch Report if you haven't already, because I told the story there. But it was another guy in his late 30s. I don't get it. These people are so entitled. Ugh, not all, obviously. Not one person is a representation of their generation, but I find a lot of misogyny in younger men. And I find it very odd. But anyway, because I'm like, Jesus, this idea of the perfect family with the perfect mom and dad, get over it. People are human. They fuck up. They're broken too. They're damaged. They're wounded. People are wounded, raised on wounded people. Get over it and deal with you. That is the lesson for 2023. Okay, so to prep forward, you want to spool your energy inside. You want to focus on what matters to you and what's right about your current foundation. What are you doing right? What are you doing right? What is great for you? Okay, what is already good? Now, you might not have a job. You might not like your job. You might not like where you live. You might not like your roommate. You might not like blah, and you lost this, and this happened, and blah, blah, blah. Okay, great. But there's something going right. There's at least one thing. It does not have to be big. It could be you have fuzzy socks, and they feel good. Okay? It does not have to be huge. It just has to be one thing that's right. Put attention there. And then you'll find another thing that's right. And that's your foundation. Okay? You stood up for yourself. High five. Good for you. How do you feel about that? See, you found that courage to assert yourself. You found that courage to like yourself enough to have a boundary. Good for you. Good for you. That's the way you do it, right? And sometimes we stand up for ourselves and we don't get the result we want, right? Sometimes that's the case. But you know what? You still know you stood up for yourself, right? And not everybody's going to agree with us. See, that's one of the things of these people who teach stand in your truth. And then people think, well, the minute I speak my truth, I know because I've been there. When I speak my truth, then people have to hear me. It's kind of like free speech. You have the right to think, believe, and say what you want, but nobody has to listen to you. Nobody has to agree with you. Nobody. But you have to love you. You don't, but it makes life easier, right? Yeah, right? You don't have the results yet, but you still feel great. High five. That's the attitude. And that's what gets us through 2023. You got to bring that energy in. Now, 2023 won't really feel like it starts until mid-January, guys, right? Yeah. To laugh at your failures. Yeah, because there's no such thing as actual failure. You're either learning or you're growing. You're learning or you're growing. You're learning or you're growing. Okay, there's really no such thing as failure. I get really annoyed at the blog for Psychology Today because I think there's a lot of bullshit in it. Okay, because they'll talk about failed relationships. There is no such thing as a failed relationship. There is a relationship that begins and it ends. Okay. And in the middle of that, you learn things. You either learn things about yourself or how you deal with other people or things about other people, but there's a whole range of topics. I was just talking to a young person in their Saturn return, and they have a relationship that is on the way out. Okay. And as we were discussing this, I said, what have you learned while you've been in that relationship? Okay. And they were like, well, what do you mean? I learned I don't like this and this and this. And I said, okay, those are all fine things to know that you don't like about that relationship. But what else have you learned? Like real world skills. Did you learn anything from them? And they're like, well, I learned about wealth retention. I'm like, wow, that's a really big thing to learn. I learned about this industry. Really? What else did you learn? I learned about this and this and this. What opportunities did you have? I had these. Okay, great. So even though this is winding down and it's no longer a gratifying relationship and it's time for both parties to maybe go their opposite ways, you've gained from this. Yes. Okay, great. Go from there. That's your foundation. Because if all you think about is the red flags and the bullshit and the dysfunction and the verbal abuse or the emotional manipulation, then guess what you're going to find next time? Same scenario. But if you take the bounce and you go, this is what I got out of it, then the next thing is even better, right? Yeah. Relationships to network. Absolutely. That's great. Yeah. Right. Exactly. I can look back at every relationship, friendship, romantic relationship, dating, what have you, and go, oh, I learned this, I learned this, I learned this, I learned this. And yeah, of course I learned about all the stuff I didn't want. Absolutely. But it helped me get clear about what I did want and need. Because almost none of us have ever had our needs fully fulfilled. Okay? It's really hard for people to understand what love is. Like, read any psych mag and you'll be like, the way love gets described is almost always a very physical thing, and that's sex. That's not love, okay? Love is acceptance. The second house governs love in astrology, traditionally. We can love people because even back in the day, people could love people, but they didn't end up getting married if they had resources. People didn't have resources, didn't get married back in the day in the same way with a contract. They might hand fast or jump brooms, or, there was always something that happened to fulfill a connection, but the written contract, which is the seventh house, love and money didn't necessarily, love and money come in the same space. It comes from an understanding of worth and value, right? It comes from worth and value. And I'm about smashing the patriarchy. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Lori Rivers. I've been an astrologer for 3 decades, and I believe in modernizing our interpretations because we do not live in ancient Greece, nor do we want to. If you want to smash the patriarchy, you really don't want to use the old interpretations because they were developed within the confines of a patriarchal structure and mindset. So we want to move things forward. In fact, losing binary interpretation in general would be great. Not that in the mundane we don't use that, because we do, but in natal interpretations we can just see energy, because the funny thing is when you look at a chart you don't see gender. We don't know if someone is a female human or a male human or a them human. Okay. Now we can see if they are more into a traditional relationship, a more unique relationship, if they have different sexual preferences, including the kinks. I could do a whole series on astrological kinks. Maybe on my podcast, maybe for patrons. I don't think I'll do it here on TikTok. But yeah. But we don't see gender because it's a social construct. And astrology, the interpretation is done through our social and cultural lenses. However, the astrology itself doesn't deal with that stuff. because it's the cosmic clock, and we embody a slice of time and space. We are time and space crystallized into physical form. You had a 1 in 400 trillion chance of being human, right? Right? Do a kink podcast? So there, I'm a Scorpio rising. I'm all about it. Absolutely. Hey. Right? Okay, everybody wants the kinky podcast. Absolutely. Why not? Yeah. All right. Right? Oh, for Valentine's Day. That would be great. Yeah, that's a good idea. Mods, make a note of that in the forum. Do a kink podcast. Absolutely. I'll find a way to do some TikToks around it then too. But you know me, I'll do subtle innuendo. But that's the way most people like talk about love. And really, if you've ever had the benefit of being truly loved, just accepted for who you are, warts and all. Oh my God, my neighbor. They turned it off. But anyway, if you've ever had that privilege by anyone, it isn't necessarily a romantic thing. It could have been from a teacher or a grandparent. Grandparents are often the source of that, or an auntie or an uncle or even a neighbor, you know, somebody who just truly appreciated you, just for you, warts and all. There wasn't anything you could really do to disappoint them. There wasn't really, and not everybody gets that. But if you look back, you've probably had some kind of encounter. And that's a second house issue, right? And that's what we need to give ourselves, because we're often looking for the completion of a need, a wanting, there's an empty spot and we're looking to fill it. But guess what? We find other people who have empty spots looking to fill, and we're just trying to piece together holes with no plugs. The idea that there's this divine counterpart, that there's a one and only, is a myth. And honestly, the whole twin flame thing is a Facebook trend that started in about 2012, I think maybe 2011. But it's not actually a historical metaphysical thing. I remember running into it and going, because I've studied metaphysics literally my whole life. I just didn't know it was called metaphysics when I was a kid. I read Manly P. Hall. I read the Theosophists. I read comparative religion. I cleared out a Carnegie library by the time I was 14, right? Yeah, that whole twin flame thing is something that started at around the last big awakening of 2012. And a lot of people entered the spiritual space as entrepreneurs and started taking advantage of people who were lonely and grieving and alone. And we've all been trained, especially women, okay, people socialized as women in our society, that our value comes from how we are partnered, okay? That's why there's this whole Jupiter trend going, it's going to show you your husband. Why are you looking for one? Why don't you be like Cher? Like when her mom told her, you need to marry a rich husband, go find a rich husband. She said, Mom, I am a rich man. I am a rich husband. We need to be more like Cher. Men are for dessert. Okay? This whole idea that, well, I don't want to be in my masculine phase anymore. That's patriarchy talking. Women have always, especially if you go back in time, women have always hunted. Women have always provided. Women have always risen to the defense. Just like me in the parking lot yesterday with this Goomba guy aggressing me. I was like, well, if he comes at me, we're both going down, and he's going to have to explain how he got a nose broken and a kneecap busted by a woman. I'd probably be hurt. Don't get me wrong. I'd probably end up in the Hooskow. But he'd have to explain why he had injuries. That isn't masculine behavior. That is a woman behavior. Okay, the idea of what is masculine and feminine behavior is a social construct. And I am so tired of seeing these studies done by academics who do not start to decompartmentalize, okay, what is social construct and not. They assume certain things are natural behaviors. And I'm like, did you ever study sociology? And what is being taught these days? Because we sure as hell were looking at it back in the 90s. I don't want to hear nothing. I'm like, I don't know. Things got dumbed down or people forgot what was already there. Because we were busting through these things back then. And then the 2000s happened. And everything swung back hard and got super conservative. But yeah, we are human. We are human, point blank. And there might be times where in a vulnerable position, there has to be strategic action, such as in the childbearing stage with a small infant, because our infants cannot take care of themselves. And so sometimes you have to offset things, but it's not a permanent state. But even then, they found in certain areas of the world, there are people who will go hunting after having a child, like the same day. Kudos to them. But I suppose if that's what you have to do, that's what you have to do. Yeah, critical thinking is sorely lacking. It absolutely has, because we started teaching to the test. Okay, so people just went to the right answer. And that's why so many of you are afraid of being wrong. The worst thing about that wasn't so much the lack of critical thinking, but the fear of failure, the fear of getting the wrong answer, because the penalty was huge. And so this idea of learning and experimenting, because we learn through experimentation. You're not going to be perfect the first time you try something. You're not going to get it right away. It takes applied effort to master a topic or master a subject, or certainly master self. You're not going to master yourself by reading a lot of personal development books. You're going to master self by learning about a theory and then practicing it and doing it over time, reiteratively, because that's what develops neural pathways. But yeah, and so this is all what's coming up for 2023. There's going to be a massive surge of energy, especially come March. And it's not just Pluto in Aquarius. It's Saturn in Pisces, Pluto in Aquarius, the Mars in Cancer. Those are all huge energies, right? So big change coming. And if you don't have a solid foundation, you're going to get kicked up and pushed through it. So yeah. Oh, you were so afraid of being wrong, you stopped yourself from trying new things, but you rectified it, right? Ninth house on fire, absolutely. I've got Jupiter in opposition to my natal Uranus and Jupiter, and it's trying my Mars. So, right? Mars in Cancer, your Mars return is coming up. Good for you. So this is something important. You gotta pay attention to that. Yeah. Took 40 years. That's okay. Took me 40 years too. You know, it was a constant process. People think you can just heal, and everybody wants to heal those generational patterns, but you know what? You're not going to get every generational pattern or every bit of generation. You're not going to heal it all up. You're not. You're going to get as much as you can. And you're never fully done self-actualizing. Self-actualizing is a process. We are not fully actualized ever. There's a constant unfolding. One of my favorite metaphors comes from Buddhism, and it's the 10,000 petal lotus. And so from, the bud, it opens and there's layers and layers and layers, and it's actually, they're talking about the higher mind. And it opens and it unfolds and it unfolds. So you have an awakening and you have unfoldings. You have an awakening, you have unfoldings. Part of an awakening can include learning to be egotistical and really feel like you have all the answers. And what you know is what you know, and everybody else is wrong and you're right. And you want the rest of the world to fall in line with you. That's part of the path. Okay? And eventually you learn you don't know shit. Nobody knows what they're doing. There's no such thing as an evil genius running thing. There's just a whole lot of privileged and competent people, and you don't have anything to worry about, and you might as well try. Okay? But yeah. I have no idea what your question means. Oh, Sun conjunct Chiron. Don't worry about Chiron. It's a minor player. Chiron wasn't discovered until 1977. All of those asteroids people go on about, they're very, very modern. All they do is they just reconfirm other things in the chart. Study the actual basic astrology, the basics first before you touch asteroids, because all asteroids do is they reconfirm what else is in the chart. And you don't want to use the Greek myths with them because the Greeks didn't use them. The Greeks did not use asteroids. They could not see them. The only thing the Greeks could see was up to Saturn. Yeah. So they didn't use lots either. That was a much later discovery because they didn't have the mathematical capacity to do lots. That's why they used profections, because they couldn't be accurate with transits. Okay, so I know there's a lot of popular astrology out there, but it doesn't bear out if you actually study it and you study the actual history behind it instead of a bunch of opinions by people selling programs. So, yeah. I have resources linked up in my bio. And I'll be rewriting some of the books because I find a lot of them are outdated as far as interpretations go. But if you're just getting started, I really like The Idiot's Guide to Astrology for a very basic beginner book. I've been assigning that to students for about 20 some years. So if you're just getting started. No, I'm not going to, because the 13th sign is stupid. It wasn't used for a reason. They knew about it. Because astrology is about polarities. 13 does not make for polarities. They're not competing energies. They're complementary energies. They understood about it. I never say it right. It's a neither here nor there. NASA brings it up every 5 years or so just to try to make astrology look stupid. It's bullshit. Mods will put it in the comment. I'm not going to repeat myself over and over. So if you want actually a really good astro guide, I have one linked up in my bio. And if you become patrons, you get it for free. And that includes the $3 a month patrons, which is only going to be $3 a month till December 31st. And then I raise everything up. But current patrons retain the same pricing. So yeah. You can hear whatever you want. I'm not going to teach astrology in a live because I teach astrology classes. Everybody can have a difficult childhood. I would get out of terminal uniqueness, but it does show some challenges. I think whenever I see a Saturn conjunct or opposite a luminary, then it usually shows that there's something there. What was your childhood like? That will give you the answer. Astrology doesn't tell you anything you don't know. It confirms things you won't tell anyone else. I always tell people that in my readings. So yeah. Oh, thank you. You've learned so much from the Patreon and the podcast. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. You love the transit class? Yeah. I'll be doing another master class. It'll be a full out master class. And I'll probably start at the end of January. I'm running behind on everything because I wasn't feeling well. I took all that time off at the holidays where I was going to write and get things done. And all I ended up doing was sleeping because I was just shot. I think I had a little cold or something, but I was just out. That's why I didn't make any content go live. This is my first live in like a week. So yeah. But yeah. So yeah. Yeah, gonna do a master's class. It'll probably run about 12 weeks. And I'm also going to be running a class for people who are professional readers on how to, and that's basically anything from astrology to tarot or what have you, to set up their business structure better, because I find people tend to be a little weak in that spot. And that's putting my two loves together, but also teaching the ethics, etc. So I may even have a So You Want to Be a Professional Astrologer class where people think they're ready to put their shingle out. I'm not taking on any more apprentices, but I will teach a professional development class where we go over the ethics, because I want to see more professional astrologers out there actually giving good information and ethical information. And I think it's really important to support people in that process. These will be pretty affordable. I know the economy's tough. I just want to be able to help people do well, but do so ethically. Why do you think a Gemini fell in love with all Scorpios? I don't know what you're talking about. That's not necessarily a universal case. Sun signs have very little to do with relationship. Sun sign is your animating force. So I think that's just kind of stretching things a little bit astrologically. You just got over COVID. Oh, big hugs. Yeah, I don't think it was COVID. It might have been. That is a dry throat, not a cough. But I think it was a cold or something. I don't know. It was weird. Oh, congratulations, Spencer. Hey, you need to play with us more in the Discord. Come in, jump in. We have a timeout thread now. Come play. We did. I made a timeout thread today. People were having way too much fun. And they were threatening each other with timeouts. So I gave moderator Shane the power to throw he has a Capricorn moon, to throw people into timeout. And it's just been hilarious. I was so excited when you became a patron. Spencer was like one of my very earliest followers. I think you've been on my live since the beginning or close to it, since I could go live. My Spencer. So when I saw you on the Patreon list, I was like, oh, you got here. I was so excited. Never think creators don't recognize you from comments and lives. We do, and it's like, oh, if I haven't heard from you for a while, I'll be like, oh, where are they? So yeah. I'm so excited. So excited. But yeah. Oh, you were sick too? Yeah, it was just a weird low energy, didn't feel good, had a headache, and slept a lot. But yeah, it is sweet. It's sweet. I enjoy everybody just so much. We have a good community. So, and that's the most important thing. I think a lot of times people want to learn astrology by osmosis, and I will always say it's a practice. You have to study at it to learn it. But the community part will teach you as much, if not more, by interacting with people and learning how people's energy works. Because I'm an applied astrologer. To me, it's not enough to know it. You need to apply the information, because knowledge isn't power. The application of knowledge is power. And so that's what I want to equip people with. And some of that just means we have to enjoy. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate being a faith. I got to be a birthday present today. That was exciting. I love being birthday presents and Christmas presents and Hanukkah presents and, all sorts of fun stuff presents. So that's always nice. But yeah. Aw, congratulations, Aris. Thank you. Aw. Sorry. My bad. I'm here. I'm back. I made the mistake of flicking away a phone notification. My bad. So I have fun stuff coming up in 2023, guys. Yeah. We'll be creating a video podcast. And when I say we, I mean my eldest child and I. We'll be creating a video version of the Awake Space Astrology podcast. We're going to shoot about 12 months of content. And we'll start releasing it probably in March. Super excited about that. It will be jammy themed. So we'll be rearranging the set. That'll be exciting. I'm going to be your Taxmas present. I love that. Well, keep your eye out. If you're on my email list, keep your eye out. Or if you're a Patreon, keep your eye out, because I give big discounts. Usually once a month, actually. I usually have at least once a month, I offer a special either on a specific reading or in general. So like right now, patrons, you have a 40% off all readings. And that includes with the natal astrologers. So that's a year, either the year ahead, the astro energies, Saturn return readings. If you guys didn't know, I've got a Saturn return reading. There's 40% off any and all readings from now through December 31st. So it ends on the 31st. So, and that's my big thank you, because we reached over 700 patrons, guys. You know, a lot happened in 2022. It's amazing to see the growth, and I'm really proud of what we've built. And it is a we, it isn't just me by myself. I have a beautiful team of helpers. I've had so much help from all of the mods and all of the patrons, and I couldn't do it without you. So thank you very much. That's why I like to give little gifties in the way of discounts and freebies. And on the tomorrow night, in the Discord, we're going to do the setting intention exercise where we make the little mini vision boards. I like to make cards instead of doing like a big poster board. I know some people like to do it digitally, but I think there's something kind of magical about cutting up newspapers and magazines and things. I actually have a chest full of like just stuff I've saved over the years that I just cut from and get inspiration from. And then you can tape it on or you can glue it on. I talked about it in the Crunch Report. So if you haven't watched the Crunch Report, go for it. It's a little longer than normal, but there was a lot of information to give. Oh, thank you. It is my honor to be of service. You know, I really, really love helping people find the information and the tools to unlock parts of themselves that maybe they've been reticent to see or reticent to share. I know everybody's always looking deep in their shadows, but you know, one of the biggest shadows we have that nobody looks at is the need to be virtuous. This idea that we need to be saintly if we're going to be on a spiritual path, that's oppression. We have never been asked to be a paragon of virtue. That's oppression, because it's an impossible task, you know, where we can just accept ourselves for our humanity, because we are spiritualizing matter. We are funneling divine energy through our physical selves. You know, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And with that comes the bumps and bruises. With that comes the pain and the grief and the anger and the jealousy and all of that. And because imagine if everything was just always easy and it would be really fucking boring. We can do that in the ether. And from my understanding, through channeling and through meditation, we are never looked down on by our guides. We are considered very masterful in our practice. They'll look at us bumping along and go, wow, you're doing it. But we're always encouraged. Now, if you feel like your guides are snarky or judgmental, it's really your lens interpreting that energy. Because mine used to always feel really cranky, but I can be really cranky. And it wasn't until I kind of grew from there a little bit that I realized that was just how I could hear it. I wouldn't have been able to hear it any other way than through a cranky old lady. And so one of my guides used to, in my filter, be this cranky old woman. That's no longer the perception I have, okay? It's a very beautiful, loving, calm presence, but it's been an evolvement. So we will hear how we can hear through our own perceptual lenses. They're still smart Alex, because I am one, and I love that sense of humor. So, you know, like in 2020, I was meditating on Pluto, and I got just this thought popped into my head of all you had to do was live to 2020. And I was like, that would have been nice to know. And the next thought was, you wouldn't have believed it. And I'm like, well, fair enough. You're right. I wouldn't have. So yeah, absolutely. Unconditional love and support. We have a team supporting us, but it's hard to recognize that when, like, it's hard to allow yourself to be loved when you haven't really experienced it. I mean, we might have, but it's hard because love is so misrepresented in media. It's often done very skewed. often equated with physical desire. And physical desire is fun, and it can be great when it's involved with love. But at the same time, love is acceptance. Okay. And yeah. Yeah. Exactly. We have a wellspring of support always. And sometimes we just can't see it. And we'll be like, well, I feel alone. And there's a part of the path often where we do feel alone. There's a part of the path, especially our dark nights of the soul, where we just can't see or hear the support around us. But it doesn't mean it isn't there. It just means we are not receptive to it. You get out through the other side. There's more than one dark night of the soul. And you get out through the other side. After a while, you start to recognize it and you go, I see you. Okay. But I think a lot of times people think that the universe is like, because they were raised with this really petty idea of God or a god and a goddess or whatever deity, but there's this petty form of reward and punishment. These people are favored and these people are unfavored. This person is being punished. This person is being blessed. Blah, 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 blah. The universe doesn't really work that way. And so when they leave a church or they leave a theology and they jump to this new thing and they're searching, they apply those old mindsets. And so then they'll be like trying to light their candles or meditating or what have you, and a challenge hits them. And then they're really mad because they're like, the universe is punishing me. But that's not the case. The universe isn't punishing you. Guess what? Part of living on planet Earth is having shit happen. Okay? Things happen. And when you take death personally, like when somebody old dies or we lose a fur baby or a friend passes away at any age, we're fragile. That's part of life on planet Earth. We are born, we die. What we do in between is living. Okay? And no one is guaranteed how long they're going to be here. It is not a personal offense. And grief, well, we only grieve as deep as we love. And so if you don't know how to accept love, you don't know how to accept grief. And it can be a rocky road. And I did a whole podcast on Saturn and Pisces where I talk about that, because I think there's going to be that kind of up on a theme. And when you can see the beauty in that moment, and the beauty in the fragility, and the beauty in the vulnerability, it becomes far much less of a mindfuck and far less of drama building, where you're projecting your feelings all over the place and you make drama in your relationships, etc. And it becomes much more of a place of ease and peace and calm. And it doesn't mean you don't have pain. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. And I talked about that in that podcast too. And I learned that during my Saturn return from a wonderful person who practiced NLP in various energy forms. But yeah, you've been stuck in grief for years? Well, go listen to the Saturn and Pisces podcast, because we don't have to be stuck in any one particular place, and we can feel grief and other things at the same time. I still grieve my great-grandmother. She died when I was 11. I can also connect with her and her energy. Doesn't mean I don't miss her physical presence. Doesn't mean I don't miss her at Christmas time. I do. I miss my love of my life. And I can feel him. I can see him. But he's still on the other side. I can be mad at him too sometimes for not being here physically. He died a long time ago. But life moves on, and we don't want to rob ourselves. The Saturn and Pisces episode of the podcast, it's up on Spotify if you want to look at it. It's there. Yeah, Saturn returns. It's a stage. Everybody takes it so personally. Guess what? It's part of being human. If you live long enough to get to a Saturn return, that's great. It's the end of one cycle and the beginning of another. Yeah. No, you didn't make me sad. I am responsible for my own emotions. Everyone is responsible for their own emotional well-being. You resonated in my field. I've actually been thinking on this subject, so you just popped up. You're just a reflection of where I've been at. And I don't mind being sad. I feel so blessed with having loved so deeply that I can miss someone. And I am with someone I do love also. We have a great capacity to love if we allow ourselves. There's so much more than one. So yeah. What's coming up in 2023? Gloom, despair, and agony on me. Deep, dark depression, excessive misery. If you had no bad luck, you'd have no luck at all. Gloom, despair, and agony on me. That's one way to look at it. Although, actually, there's some really good stuff. We're going to see some big shakeups in 2023. We're going to see some banking failures, not retail banking, but probably investment banking, more likely private equity. We're going to see the housing market slide down further. We're going to see a lot of volatility in the world economies. We are going to see further breakdown in the supply chain. We may see some border clashes in countries, but there's a whole lot. Yep, we're seeing a whole lot. Also, if you ever watch one of my videos and say, should I be worried? I'm going to ask you back, should you? Because it's not a very good question, guys. Never ask me, should I be nervous? Should I be worried? I'm going to go, I don't know, should you? I'm not going to tell you what to feel. Why should you worry? Be proactive. Deal with life. Shit happens. Navigate it. That's what we're going to be dealing with. There's more systemic failure. I think we're going to see more labor movement stuff. I think we're going to see a lot of Any age appropriate book recommendations? I don't know what you mean by age appropriate. Do you mean middle age people, for middle-aged people that don't just put out youth culture bullshit? Or are you talking about children's stuff? Because I honestly don't think children should learn about interpreting astrology when they're little. I think they should learn more about consciousness. No, the energy doesn't necessarily lighten next year, but it's different. It shifts. We're in another transition year before 2024, which starts completely differently. So we have many parts to 2023. You can listen to my podcast, or I did it. There's a lot of big stuff up on deck in 2023. We're not out of the woods. We're in massive systemic change. I've been talking about this for years, but you know what? You can choose how you navigate it. So it's how you choose. If you're distracted by everything the media wants you to feel, you're going to have a hard time. You got to stop focusing where they point you, and you want to focus inward and manage that energy. So when some bump happens and you go, shit, there's a bump, put it back. Like, okay, I'm going to dig my heels in and I'm going to push forward. Make sure you have connections with people. I'm not talking about rugged individualism. I'm talking about putting the onus on you. Honey, 2020 was just the beginning. We'll never have another year like 2020 because nothing will shock us in the same way. I wasn't shocked by 2020. I watched it come since the mid-90s. I got a lot of texts saying, oh, wow, you weren't crazy. Okay, we don't even out for quite a few more years. We are undoing centuries, millennia of systemic imbalance. If that happened just in 1 year, nobody could take it. Nobody would survive it. So it's going to take years. And the Pluto and Aquarius era is a 20-year run. Now, we are not completely destabilized all through that time. But you want to be networked with people you can trust. That means small, tight groups, interconnected through extended relationship. So that's like you get a group of 5 people, and each one of those 5 people is connected to another person in a group of 5 people. You make small cells that are interconnected, and that's how we navigate this time. But you got to be able to communicate, collaborate, and play. And if you just want to make the world fit your agenda, if you're trying to wake everybody else to see your light, see your truth, you're going to have a hard time. Because in the spiritual community, or I like to say the spiritual world, because I don't see a singular community. I think it's an erroneous belief to think, because we'll talk about similar subjects, that we're in any form of community. Community requires a whole lot more than a generalized interest. And we don't want to look for like minds, we want to look for like hearts. But yeah, that's why I call it the cosmic clock and the cosmic tide. Surfing the cosmic tide takes practice. Because the tide comes up and you catch it with your board, but sometimes you fall off. Sometimes the bumps hit you off the board, right? So you get back on and you try again. Sometimes it wipes you out. Sometimes you get back up. But everybody acts like, oh, life's supposed to be this way. You're supposed to have this thing. It's like all those people thinking their wedding day is supposed to be like the biggest day of their life. Why would you ever want one day to be the best day of your life? Is that not a frightening concept? Think about that for 2 seconds. If you live for an average of 75 years, you want one day to be the best? I'm a little more greedy than that. I want reasonably content for as long as I can grab. And if you think another person is going to make you complete, think on again. You better complete yourself, or you're with an incomplete person. We want 2 complete people journeying alongside one another. The 7th house is not about codependency. It's about interdependency and mutuality. Yeah, it's like peaking in high school. Oh my God. So when I was a senior in high school, and this was like 1986, one of my teachers was like, this is the best time of your life. And my life was not great. I was a great student. You never would have known by looking at the outside the hell I was living at home. And so I raised my hand. I'm like, if that's true, I might as well just shoot myself, sir. I was just like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. This can't possibly be the best time in my life. It's a really dangerous thing to say to young people. We should never tell young people, this is the best time of your life. It isn't the fucking best time of your life. Ugh. And if it is, I feel sorry for you, because there's way better stuff ahead. But people are taught to compromise and oppress themselves on behalf of the oppressor so much that they don't actualize, and they never follow their heart's desire. I remember when I was a really little girl, because I've always been a philosopher. Well, when I was a little girl, I listened to all the adults around me. I was always eavesdropping. They called me big ears. And I remember when I would hear these people say, well, I could have been. It's kind of like, I could have been a contender. And I was like, I don't ever want to do that. I would rather say I tried something and failed than say I could have, but I didn't. But most people are going to compromise during that Saturn return and just buy into society's oppression and become aligned with the oppressor for a illusion of security. And then they wake up during the Saturn opposition and go, shit, what'd I do? So, yeah. Absolutely. That's exactly it, Kelly Dream. Why wouldn't you do a vision board during Mercury retrograde? Isn't that the perfect time to review and think about your foundation? We're going to be doing that in our Discord tomorrow night. That's something I'm doing with all of my patrons. We're setting our intentions for 2023. Why wouldn't you take a moment to gain clarity and review and look at the foundation you want to take with you forward, the things that work in your life? Why wouldn't you want to do that? Mercury retrograde isn't about a time of doing nothing. Do you really want 3 to 4 times a year of doing nothing for 3 weeks? No. it's just not a time to start anything necessarily new. But what you do with this one, since we're moving into a new year with it, is what is the foundation I'm bringing with me? What is working that I'm bringing with me? What have I gained to shore myself up? What time tomorrow? I set that out it's in the Discord, in the community events tab, or in the events tab. And it's also, I put it out in the Crunch report. So for patrons, that's at 7 p.m. So if you're in the Discord, it's in the events. And then also more details are in the Patreon. I can't give you advice without a reading. But I don't see why you wouldn't. Why would you not do something if you feel drawn to do it? So what? Just do it. But I honestly don't give advice without looking at a chart. That is professionally unethical. Because one transit is not enough information. Almost everybody blames something on one transit. It takes 3 or more factors to show. So. My Pellegrino. Whew. Well, guys, if I'm going to record with my mods, I better get going. All right. I got a special year in podcast coming out Friday. I've been trying to make like a year-end video and I just haven't been inspired, so. But yeah. All right. Take care. All right, guys. Bye.